So today, folks, is a bit of a different one. I'm going to tell you how I was mentored by a psychiatric patient growing up. In fact, my best mentor ever was somebody that was committed to a psychiatric hospital for shooting their partner in the head and was a double agent during World War II. You couldn't make this stuff up, folks. You couldn't make it up. And that was my mentor growing up. So, a bit of context. So my parents were both psychiatric nurses, and for the first 17 years of my life, we grew up within the grounds of a psychiatric hospital. So that meant for me that when I went to school, all of the kids are a bit crueler than they are these days. We were lunatics on day release. My parents were nuts. I can tell you the lunatics run the asylum. And so it was very difficult for me to find people to speak with about my issues. And I used to go up and visit my dad on the ward, and he introduced me to a patient called Mitch. And Mitch was brilliant. Mitch would listen to me all day and give me the most sage advice ever. And my dad completely trusted him. This guy was a double agent during World War II. I found this out years later, way after Mitch died. My dad told me what he was in for and who he actually was. But he used to just listen to me and give me the most brilliant advice. I used to tell him, that the kids at school were pretty cruel. They used to tease me relentlessly about being a lunatic. And he just used to smile at me and he said, "You don't realize how lucky you are." He said, "Look at the people in this institution." He said, "So many, and look at people outside of it. Everyone else feels that they have to be someone that they're not. They're all actors. They're all putting on a front for what they think that the public wants to see." And one thing that being diagnosed as a bona fide lunatic, as a psychiatric patient, is that you lose the need to fit in. You lose the need to be someone that someone else thinks that you are. And you have absolute freedom to be yourself and be completely authentic. And that advice has really stayed with me for my whole life from a bona fide lunatic, folks. And psychiatric illness in this day and age is the belief that you need to turn up as someone else, the belief that you're not good enough, the belief that you have to be more than you actually are. Societal expectations, family expectations, expectations from people at work, from people in your peers, expectations from yourself that you should be better, that you should be much better at what you do. We put expectations on ourselves all the time to show up as someone else, when in actual fact, the best thing that you can do is show up as yourself, to be authentic, be honest. Now, you may feel that there's certain contexts that you can't be honest in, especially the way the world's going right now. But the bottom line is that so much insight is there for people that are considered as by the society as lunatics. And that was what I learned from Mitch. He used to be there. He was a great listener. He always had the words of wisdom for me. And he would always encourage me just to trust that people were ignorant, to trust that most people are lunatics. Anyone that's not considered a lunatic has their own brand of lunacy. It just shows up in other areas of their life. And it stayed with me right to this day, folks, right to this day, that true lunacy is believing that you're not good enough, believing that you should be someone else, believing that you showing up as yourself is a problem. It's a problem, folks. We're not good enough. People hiding behind their shields, the masks that we all have to wear. And this was a big problem way before COVID came in, folks. People wearing masks, showing up as someone that they're not. The energy of having to show up as somebody that you're not, or put on a brave face, or be someone else in certain situations takes a lot of energy and effort, a lot of mental energy. It can drive you to psychiatric illness, believing that you're not good enough, showing up as you are. So Mitch and his message for to this day has stayed with me, that real psychiatric illness is believing that you're not good enough, folks. And if you believe that you're not good enough, then maybe it's time that you had a trip to a psychiatric ward to hear some sage advice and words of wisdom from those who have been judged the most harshly by society. But one thing that also came out of it was that people that judge, people that point fingers, and this was what Mitch said. Mitch told me another great bit of advice. He said, when these people are talking to you, they're actually talking about themselves. They're actually revealing way more about themselves than they are about you. They're telling you who they are by projecting their shit onto you. And this has proved so true in so many situations. How many times has your accuser been absolutely guilty of the stuff that they're throwing your way? That people will project, people will take their problems and they will put them elsewhere. They will accuse people of the stuff that their deepest, darkest guilt is, and they'll push it in a different direction as a distraction mechanism. And all of this wisdom, all of this wise words, it took most of my lifetime to actually own it. But now I see that the best things that I learned on human behavior and human life came from a lunatic. So, folks, if you are that lunatic, if people think that you're a lunatic, if you've been accused, if you've been pointed the finger in your direction, if people are throwing shit at you, just remember that you are a mirror for everyone else. And that the biggest cause of psychiatric problems is thinking that you're not good enough, showing up the way that you are. So to all of the haters, the doubters, the accusers, well, they will tell you about themselves by pointing their finger in your direction. Just own it, folks. Own your greatness, own your uniqueness, and own you showing up as yourself as the best way to stay out of a bona fide lunatic asylum. Because the true lunacy is believing that you're not good enough. So there you go, folks. There's my little rant from well, I don't know. I wouldn't even say it was a rant. It was just my insight from dealing with lunatics and realizing that even the maddest person in the room, the most out there person in the room, will probably have wisdom if you take time to listen without judgment. And listening without judgment, well, there's another video for another day, folks, because that is a superpower skill set that will learn you more wisdom through just being receptive to the vehicles that they come from. And most people would not take a psychiatric patient seriously. But I can tell you, I absolutely did as I was growing up, because that was where the most wisdom was coming from. So there you go, folks. A little bit of irony about growing up in a psychiatric hospital to psychiatric nurse parents, that sometimes the lunatics are running the asylum. And you probably already know that if you're looking at the current world leaders, folks. And if you want more of my little insights, my rambles, my pointing you in the right direction, a few random interviews, and to stay in touch, then show this channel a bit of love, leave your comments, please like the video, please subscribe if you haven't already done so. And if you want more of my little tales, then there's another video there. So, my friends, stay in touch with your lunacy, own your greatness, and never be afraid to show up as yourself.